All right, so this is a lesson I usually teach in class, and we do some different activities with the defense mechanisms and things. And I could have given you a video like from Khan Academy or something, but I wanted to make sure that you were getting the information the way that I like it to be taught. So I thought that I would quickly make you a video, and I'm going to have to ask you in advance to forgive me for perhaps the length of it and also the lack of editing, just because I'm trying to get this out there to you quickly. So, defense mechanisms are a really important concept with psychoanalytic theory. But before we go any further, I'd like for you just to jog your memory. And what are some of the things that you remember about Freud's theory of psychoanalysis from last week? So let's go into what are defense mechanisms. What they are, if you remember the id, the ego, the superego from last week, those constructs of personality, it's the ego, which is the mediator, if you remember. It's that construct's form of protecting the individual from anxiety and guilt from whatever it is they're feeling or thinking or experiencing. And the way that it protects the person is by unconsciously distorting the reality that the person is living in. So it's really a form of self deception. And I'll explain how each one of these is a form of self deception as we go through each one. And when we get into these, you're probably going to recognize some of them. The first of the defense mechanisms is denial. And Freud would actually say that denial is at the crux of all of the defense mechanisms. It underlies all the defense mechanisms because what denial is it's an unconscious refusal to accept reality, which is what all these defense mechanisms are. We are not accepting reality the way that it is, and we're trying to distort it, or the ego is trying to distort it in order to make us feel better about ourselves. So denial is simply stating no, whatever the situation is not true. Okay. And you can see some of the examples I have on here in picture form. Another example could be a very religious family whose child is out doing super naughty stuff, drugs, or has a drinking problem, or is out, sleeping around, things like that. In that very religious family, those parents could be like, nope, not my child. My child would never do something like that. And this is a real defense mechanism. People actually experience these things. The second defense mechanism is known as repression. And we've talked about this word a lot. I use this word in Psych 1. Whenever we talk about the unconscious mind, we talk about the things that we have repressed into that unconscious mind. It's also called motivated forgetting, that the ego purposely tries to, or allows us or causes us to forget about some sort of an anxiety causing event or situation. So it pushes away that anxiety arousing thought, the feelings, the memories, whatever it is. This is where a person who may have been abused in childhood does not remember being abused in childhood. It can be, if you remember in Psych 1, when I give the example of when my dad said, and you can't sing either. And I said, if I didn't remember that, it would be repressed into my unconscious. So that motivated forgetting, the mind's way of saying, nope, we don't want to deal with this, and we're not going to deal with it, and we're just not even going to remember that it occurred. The third defense mechanism that we're talking about is one that I'm sure we're all familiar with, and it's called rationalization. It's when we make excuses, basically, for our behavior. And this would be somebody doesn't do well on a test. Well, it's not my fault. That test was too hard. The teacher didn't teach it well enough. Okay, not taking responsibility for my own behavior. So we rationalize it away. I find myself doing this when I feel bad about not getting papers graded in a timely fashion or whatever. Well, I had this going on and this going on, and I make up excuses for why I didn't get it done. I'm pretty sure that you're familiar with this one. Fourth one's a little tricky. This one's called projection. And projection is when I feel a certain way, but it causes me anxiety, or I feel guilty about feeling this way, or whatever it is. So unconsciously, what I do is I twist the way I'm feeling and I put my feelings on someone else. Okay, let me explain this one a little bit better through an example. I used to be, and maybe sometimes I still am, I'm not sure. I catch myself doing it sometimes, but I I can be pretty good at this one. Um, Sometimes I'm just crabby, you know? I'm just crabby and I just kind of want to pick a fight with somebody. And so I will sometimes pick a fight with my husband. And so here I'm the crabby one and I'm feeling this way or whatever. And my husband comes home and all of a sudden he does something or whatever. I'm like, why are you so crabby? I didn't do anything. Why are you so crabby? And so what I do is I twist that feeling, the feeling I'm having of being crabby, I put that on him as he's the one being crabby. So then I don't have to feel so bad about starting this fight because I didn't start the fight. He did. He's the crabby one. It's twisted, it's unconscious, but we do these kinds of things. So as we go through different examples and things in some of the exercises, see if you can figure that one out, or if I need to give more examples on that, I'd be happy to do that at a later time. Reaction formation is another kind of tricky one, and it's often confused with projection. This one's a little different though, because this is, instead of putting how I feel onto someone else, what I do is I switch and I turn whatever I'm feeling into the exaggerated opposite of what it is. So, for example, actually, one of the best examples of this in my time, and still I do think it happens sometimes, is the person who's actually a homosexual acts very homophobic. I've actually known people like this. I've had a friend actually who acted like extremely homophobic, like everything was against homosexuality. And she would actually go and she'd find Bible verses and she would do different things to show why homosexuality was so wrong, when in fact, she actually was a homosexual herself. So she was using the defense mechanism of reaction formation to switch the way she was really feeling into the exaggerated opposite of what she really felt. Okay, so we're going to do a few examples here, and I'm going to let you put your answer down on the right. So go ahead and read this one and put your answer down on the right. Behavior that their child is having and is not accepting the reality that their child was the one who was using drugs at school. How about this one? Rationalization. Okay, she's making excuses for why she had to purchase each one of these items. Um, Scary for him that he probably doesn't want to remember, things like that, so he repressed it into his unconscious mind. Um, Scary for him that he probably doesn't want to remember, things like that, so he repressed it into his unconscious mind. All right, let's go on. The next defense mechanism is called displacement. All right, let's go on. The next defense mechanism is called displacement. And this is another one you're probably familiar with. This is when we have some sort of an unacceptable feeling that we have. Say you're mad at a teacher, okay, and you really would like to, yell at your teacher, let them have a piece of your mind, maybe even kick them in the shins, who knows. But instead of yelling at your teacher, because that's not appropriate, you could get in trouble for that, instead you'll go home and you'll yell at your sister or your brother or your mom. Or maybe your parents have done this to you. They've had a bad day at work. I know, I admit, I've done it to my own children and my family. Bad day at work, and I come home and I just let my kids have it. And they're like, what did I do? Well, nothing. It was my bad day at school. So some people will also, this is really inappropriate, and I did not make this thing on my video or on this PowerPoint. Another student put this on there, but because I talked about how some people will come home and actually they will abuse their pets, which is super sad, I know. But I don't understand why people have more of a problem with abusing pets than abusing children. But whenever I say abusing pets, everybody's like, oh, okay, I digress. I apologize. But displacement. Regression. Oh, heaven forbid regression. When we retreat back to an earlier, more immature pattern of behavior. This is the child who has, been potty trained or whatever, and then something's going on at school. Maybe he's being bullied or whatever. I'm talking little kid. Maybe he's being bullied or something. He starts wetting the bed again. Okay, so he retreats back to a more infantile or immature pattern of behavior. For the adult, this would be the person who is throwing a temper tantrum over something very little and very, out of proportion to whatever the event is, and they're throwing this tantrum. So retreating back to more childlike ways of behaving. All right, the next defense mechanism is identification. And identification is one where we unconsciously try to improve how we feel about ourselves by forming some sort of an alliance with a group that we really feel like we want to fit in with. Okay, so we've got the Mean Girls example there, great example, where they want to fit in with each other. They want to be in the high class group, the group that's popular, the group that's whatever. And so they start dressing like that, like each other. They start hanging out with, but they act like the people that they're hanging out with. On the other picture, we see like a country club setting, or the boat, things like that. And we've got people who actually do this, who they want to fit in with and feel like they're in that upper class society and fit in with people that might be above their own, what they feel, social status. And so they'll go out and they'll buy the big boats and the houses and the toys and all those different things, so that they'll feel like they fit in with that social group or that social class. It doesn't just have to be class, it can be just whatever group it is that we want to fit in with, where we start to act like them and do more with them. But what we've got to understand is that the reason we're doing it is to feel better about ourselves. It's not a real, genuine type of friendship or fitting in with that group. That's what makes this one a little bit different than just basic friendships and things. It's not bad to have boats. I'm not saying it's bad to have boats or to be part of the country club or anything like that. It's when we are using those things to feel better about ourselves, so that we feel like we fit in with this group of people that we wouldn't otherwise fit in with. Number 9 is called compensation. And this is going to be when we have some sort of a weakness in an area of our lives. Let's say the example I've got here is the athlete who is not a very good student. Okay, so he's not a very good student, and to compensate for, to feel better about his bad grades, he puts his energy into his athletics. Okay, and he's an awesome athlete. But the problem is we're in denial, or we're not dealing with the issue of the grades, okay? And we are ignoring that part of things, and we're just focusing all of our energy into what we're good at. Okay, we've got to have balance. And I'm not just talking with grades, whatever it is, whatever I'm not good at, or wherever my weakness is in my life, okay? Taking the energy that you would put toward that and putting all of it into this other area that you're already good at, that's where the defense mechanism and the unconscious part of it comes in. And the last one is actually a good one. It's called sublimation, and it's very similar to displacement, in the sense that I've got frustration, I've got things I'm upset about, and things like that. And instead of letting those things out on the person I'm upset with, or with my family members, or whatever, I do something more socially appropriate. Okay. And one of the best things is exercising. Okay. People who, if your coach or someone has ever told you to, take your frustration out on your workout. Okay. People who go out and they run aggressively, or they, take a bike ride like you see here, or, football players who just go and, rail all over that, defensive lineman or whoever it is, that they just, have a great practice because they were so frustrated about something that had happened during the day. So sublimation, where we push it away, we don't deal with it directly with the person or the situation that it's happening with, but it's healthy because we're letting it out in a socially appropriate way that's not going to get us in trouble. All right. Effects of defense mechanisms. Are these bad to use? I mean, because I'm sure there have been a few, and I know I've admitted that there are a few that I've used in my life, or that I do use. They're not bad. They're actually healthy for us when we use them in moderation. And also, the more we know about them, the more we'll recognize them in ourselves when we use them. So they're okay to use every now and then. We don't want to overuse them. If we're ignoring the underlying issues or the things that are actually causing the feelings, then they become a problem. Okay, when we're doing, if we're in such denial about the things going on in our lives or in the lives of, people that that we love or things like that, that can be a problem. If we've got parents who are in denial that their kids are, abusing drugs, we need to do something about that. Okay, so they're okay every now and then. This is just a picture, and I'll actually share on the slideshow. You can have the slideshow and be able to look at this a little bit better so that you can see the flow chart and how these work. It's just a resource for you. Another resource for you. I actually might, yeah, I thought I might have this on something else I could just share with you, but it'll be in the slideshow. And that's about it. So hopefully this is helpful to you. You've also got some reading that you can do, but shoot me any questions that you might have, and I'd be happy to answer them for you.